Hey, well, I am thinking I might have solved the sound issue with my recording. So here's a game in which I'm playing against another control deck. His commander's Child of Alara. I think it's distinctly worse than Sliver Queen. It takes 4 turns to win. It can't attack and block at the same time. It has a problem with the Abyss, which is namely that it dies, although I suppose it would take the Abyss down with it. And the only thing good you can really say about it is it works very well in a land ramp pernicious deed style deck in which it basically functions as an additional deed. But all that in mind, it still could be a threat, and it means his deck certainly can be a threat. So I'm leading off with Verge here, feeling pretty good about my hand, as it's amazing. But he got to go first, and he gets to Demonic Tutor. So here's my thinking at this point. Well, first I'm thinking drawing Terminus sucks, but at least I have a Brainstorm. But then I'm thinking I want to get down with Ancient Tomb here and crack the Verge right away, because him seeing that I have the Verge may have compelled him to run to play the fetch, rather, the 2/1 flyer that you can play with Flash that prevents me from digging any further than 4 cards deep, essentially allowing him to him not knowing I have the Tomb. He gets to wait till I play a land. I play another land. I crack the Verge. He flashes the flyer down, kills my Verge, sets me up for failure that way. It's the kind of play that I might make if I were running a deck like his, assuming he's even running with that guy at all. So the whole line of thought basically was, I'm afraid of Bird, go ahead and tap out now. Deal with it later. But on turn 3 he plays Soul Ring, so now I'm thinking, okay, he got Soul Ring. And what nasty thing is coming down? But Arena. So now I'm thinking, okay, he got Soul Ring, or he got Arena, which he could play on turn 3 and then happen to top deck Soul Ring. Either way, it's pretty bad news for me if I don't get caught up somewhere, either in mana or cards. At this point, I'm actually tied with him on mana, so I elect to attack his cards, since I'm ahead on cards. And what I really would like to do would be, theoretically, to like Mystical Tutor for Quiet Spec, and then Quiet Spec Grudge for the Ring, Ray for the Arena, and a Deep Analysis to continue to press my card advantage. But I'm 1 blue short. Like, no matter how I do it, if I Mystical and then I Brainstorm it and then I Spec, I'm missing a mana. So Tomb is actually not as good for me here. But I do have another option, and I decide that taking that option now before he gets to draw a card is the right play, as opposed to just sitting on Crypt and saying go, or crypting his Arena and encouraging him to replay his turn. I figure whatever he does here, I can either reply to with various cards in my hand, including just bouncing, or he won't do anything, and then I untap, and then I'm certain that I win the game. What I didn't account for, unfortunately, is this play here. Well, if we can get the play to go. Yeah, Mind Twist for 5. And magically, of course, because Twist is just like this, I get to keep my planes. Out of all the gas in my hand, I get to keep planes. So, awesome. But instead of getting pissed, I mean, technically I do have a Ray. I guess I have 2 cards in hand. My deck just decides to suddenly be nice to me, like, although it's been very generous with the draws so far. Coughs up a Scroll Rack, which allows me to rack for 1. And normally I'd leave this green untapped for Ray, but I'm thinking that if I draw either my my Enlightened Tutor, or my Vampiric, or Demonic, or Imperial Seal, I would much prefer to have these 2 lands untapped. It could have been green and black, but I figured, like, there's just more quality white cards, Tithe, etc. Of course, the card I was really hoping to draw right there was Land Tax, but as it turns out, I get a remand, which is pretty solid. So I'm figuring now that my opponent is going to play a big spell because he cleared the way with Mind Twist. So when I saw the remand, I kind of was like doing a little dance there. It's basically Time Walk here. It's like a cantrip Time Walk. He's going to waste his turn, is what I expect. I'll remand his spell, I'll draw a card, I'll draw another card, then I'll rack those into 2 cards, and maybe I'll have a chance. But actually, this turn goes even better than I anticipated. So he wasted his window of opportunity, allowing me to save a remand in order to duress himself for a 5 mana on a bribery while shuffling away my planes. It probably doesn't get any better than that. And he plays a land here. I'm going to go ahead and close out the commanders, and we'll just have to keep those in mind. And he shuffles me into the nuts. So suddenly he's at 3 cards in hand, and although he has mana advantage, that's quite likely to change. I even have remand, so we'll see what happens here. So during his upkeep, he spends another card in order to, I'm assuming, go get a counterspell. But since he doesn't have 2 blue, I'm definitely remanding that during his upkeep to stall for a turn and get attacks off. And look what I draw. And he makes a moat. I have no idea why he makes this play. He needs to be the aggressor, obviously. Like, I'm trying to be the control player. I'm trying to get back into the game. I'm certainly not in any position to be aggro. And, I mean, I'm sitting here with a Ray and a green up. But because he needs to be the aggressor, and I really don't care about Sliver Queen, I just leave it there. Take my 3. Get rid of my lands before playing lands so I can see what I should do. So I could play that plains that seems to find its way back to my hand throughout this game, but and throw down humility. But I actually don't really give a darn about his commander. It would be a way to potentially shut down something like, say, Mystic Snake or something. But I actually haven't seen any creatures yet. So maybe he is playing like a pure control strategy like we are. I don't know. I thought about maybe leaving my mana untapped and faking a counter, or playing Strip Mine and saying go so I can teachings. But since I have one floating anyway, and I realize that there's another way I can fake a counter, so I do just by showing him one. And then of course he's got that mystical, so let's go ahead and try to buy another turn of taxing. Now that shuts off my tax situation, but in order for him to play his mystical or commander or anything blue, obviously he has to play another blue source. Hopefully he doesn't draw Felwar and he's going to let me tax again, which is exactly what happened, so that's pretty great. And I guess here his thinking is one of 2 things, right? Here comes the commander. So I'm trying to figure out what his thinking is, and I'm figuring that because he's got mystical in his hand, and the right play should be end of turn mystical, based on whatever I do, and then make his play. Go get regrowth and mind twist me again, or deal with my permanence or whatever. So for him to do this, I'm thinking that he most likely has a way to sacrifice it, which if it's not something like Cabal Therapy, and I see no reason for him to be playing Therapy, it's probably something like Phyrexian Tower, something I can't counter. So at this point I'm a bit concerned with that, and that is exactly why I decide to, of course, take my peek first. Holding Opal, thinking I was going to find another artifact to go with it, but assuming I would surely find a white source. And so that's why I decide I'm going to get down with humility and shut off a potential Phyrexian Tower to blow these up. It's also why I didn't hold back mana for like Forbid with Force backup. And it's also why I didn't do something like, say, transmute scroll rack, which obviously, or maybe play Mox Opal and transmute it into Winter Orb, because it still wouldn't do anything about a tower. And my opponent is explaining what dirtle means to me. I still don't understand it. It just sounds like a word for being an awful player. So anyway, he also, on the bribery turn, we have an interesting conversation where he says he can't give up Witness and the Snapcaster, and I tell him that I just prefer to use Regrowth and Will. Anyway, although I suppose you could run both. So his 1/1 can't attack me, and he has nothing to do. I had a green for Ray, but there's no targets. So I mean, look at this situation. Thanks to lucky top decking a scroll rack, a plains becomes a remand, which gets a bribery, turns a plains into a tax. A tax turns a mind twist for 5 into a brain geyser for 6, and game on. So this time I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, do I want to hold back, for forbid with buyback, or what? And I don't know. I'm just reading him as having nothing, so I figure I'm going to go ahead and test the waters with the transmute, and then chill behind forbid. And should he play, like, say, something nasty, and then I forbid it, and then I won't buy it back. But if he were to then respond with some other terrible spell, I could maybe scroll back for 1 and luck into a Force of Will, a blue card for Force. But as it turns out, none of that's necessary. He lets me eat my Opal, since it's potentially screwed by Artifact Kill, turning it into Crucible. He doesn't get to find out what I get until after, so he doesn't know if he should counter transmute or not. You always should, by the way. And I decide to go with strip lock, since I have a solid position, and that means giving up tax. Now the other thing here is that if I want, I have the option to strip my own, like, say, tomb and start tax rack again. But I'm expecting him to mystical here, and depending on what he gets, like, say, for example, the red overload spell, or say like a black spell, I'm going to strip appropriately. But for whatever reason, he doesn't mystical. So I figure, okay, maybe he's going to do it during upkeep. Maybe it was some sort of ploy to get me to misplay or something. But his upkeep passes him by as well. And as soon as he gets to his draw phase, I figure, okay, definitely stripping Tundra. Don't want him to have blue. If he mysticals now, he won't get the card for another turn. And in another turn, I'm going to have so much mana, I think it's all over. And plus, whatever he gets, I'm just going to strip the appropriate color again. But what actually happens is that. So I hope you enjoyed the recovery from having 4 lands only, a land in hand, no other cards, after getting Mind Twisted for 5, and then going from that to taking control of the game and winning. See you next time.